Hi guys, it's
Hi.
Nate and Smay, and it's been a couple years, and we're back to finish what we started or continue
Yeah,
we began. And the one thing that's kind of been on both of our minds is the 12 senses. And we know about the first five. There's a movie made about ghosts about the sixth, but I don't really think that's what we're talking about here.
yeah,
Maybe it can fold in. But Nate, maybe you want to bring up the 12 human senses, the Hova bodies, and primary experiential attributes.
sure. Yeah. And before we go here, I think it's very important as this is something that's been really present in my experience basically my whole life, but especially recently, is that we're going to be bringing up some information that might be a bit of a trigger because it is filling in an enormous gap of what knowledge that we actually do have on on Earth as we know it and in the cosmos. And it's not about good or bad or right or wrong or anything like that. There are comparisons that we can relate to this, what I believe, and I feel very passionately, is if there was knowledge lost to humanity in what we know as not even the burning of the Library of Alexandria or Ashurbanipal, but more what is the destruction of Atlantis and Lemuria, which were not the names of those places. But if that did happen, and if knowledge was lost, would we even be able to recognize what it looks like? And this is more a provision of a source, God. If there is if there is an allowance in free will that one can choose to be ignorant of, to ignore or go against, if we don't know what we're working with, then the only choice is like playing a war game, essentially, playing an othering game, where we don't realize that in this whole field of experience, it's all us playing the same thing. If we're all manifestations of source and if everything around us is too, our best idea is to remember and to be able to integrate all that knowledge. So the knowledge we're going to be talking about is not something that we made up. It's something that's only been returned to humanity in really the last less than 30 years. It's 2025 right now, right? Yeah. It was the late 90s that this started to be dispensed in the Voyagers book, which I found in about 2007 or so. But yeah, ultimately, we're going to learn about what is the difference between what most people think of as sacred geometry as it exists on this planet, which is ultimately something that is really about death science, like Death Star Merkaba mechanics, and it's almost everything available to us is not sacred. If we think of sacred as something distinct from normal. And so what we're presenting here with the 12 human senses to start, and let me see if I can share my screen here. Here we go. Let's see if this works. And please forgive us as we are both stumbling our way through the technical details of how to show this. Okay, here we go. Can you see that?
I can see it.
Okay, so this is what, when we refer to the Rashatan code, also called the feel-good code, this is essentially what the spirit body of water looks like, which we're all made of. We know in science that we're mostly made of water. And if our experience, not only on this planet, on the solar system, in this galaxy, and in the cosmos, was not so damaged, then this is what the imprint of what we're made of would also look like. And if you notice, there are 12 points to this. 12 is a very important number. Also, one of the reasons that there's 12 senses and 12 responsibilities, 12 attitudes, and 12 virtues that correspond with each one, and 12 chakras too, is that each one of these is a lotus petal of your manifestation of your embodiment of consciousness to interact with dimension 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 in the 12 manifest dimensions of this universe. And each three of them are spinning on the same axis. The angle of rotational particle spin is what it's referred. And every 45 degrees, this is why the Cathara grid is very important. We have dimension 1, 2, 3 here, which represents density 1 or harmonic universe 1. That's the density we're experiencing together right now in this
So,
little tissue capsule that we're in, right?
so the senses that we know, modern earth science in this density is sight, sound or hearing, tactile or touch, or sense of smell or olfactory, and sense of taste. So that's
Yes.
in those first three.
All of these are within the physical body too. So some of them go beyond, and there's also different, we know the term clairvoyance,
Ah,
precognition, stuff
mhm,
like that.
is seeing from your third eye, having clear sight, but like it's not through your eyes, it's through your
Hmm.
consciousness. And then clear audience is being able to hear or receive messages that aren't necessarily said with somebody's physical voice, right? So it
Hmm.
can also, I guess, technically be, what's the word? Telepathy.
Hmm.
And then
Well, you were jumping ahead. That's 7.
7,
Hmm.
and then clear sentience, which is, these are like new age definitions or words that kind of
Hmm.
are correlate with the senses as chelantic science defines
Hmm.
it. And claircognizance is like a knowing, like you just know, your body knows, and it's just, I know everyone has had that feeling where they just know something, either that's about to happen, that has happened, that is the true, maybe the true motivation of someone or something.
I think you're talking about all of these right here, which is sense 7, which is experienced as direct cognition, direct inner knowing.
Yeah, inner audiovisual direct cognition. Yeah. And then there's something in between the first 5 senses that kind of get muddied in with 6 through 12 is, I don't know if anyone's familiar with sensory processing or sensory integration. A lot of autistic people on the spectrum have this, and you don't have to be autistic in order to
Do.
to to have this, but there's 3 additional senses that have been defined through sensory integration, and that's balance. Where am I in space? Like up and down, left and right. Where is my body? And that's part of embodying,
Hmm.
your shell.
Actually, I learned more about this term at an F3 workout where a man who had had a traumatic brain injury where he had to relearn that, and proprioception was described to him. It's what your consciousness uses to know where and when you are essentially in relationship to everything around you. So it's not just your 5 senses that do that. It's the way for your consciousness to relate through at least the 5 sense organs that,
Right.
contemporary earth science understands, to know I'm here right now. What's in front of me is a computer monitor, obviously, and I'm in this room. But if we lose any ability to do that with our senses or our brain's ability to process that, we might fall down more or bump into things or
Yeah.
or missing a certain site, it has difficulty.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. There's the vestibular, which is balance, and then proprioception, which is movement. And how far are you? What is your perceived distance between you and another object? Yeah, those go hand in hand. And then there's interoceptive, which is where these are internal sensations like hunger, pain, the need to urinate or the need to poop, or even physical manifestations of thought and emotion, such as butterflies from anxiety. These are all like internal feelings that are pretty individual, but
Hmm.
yeah, that just folds.
Introception. That's an interest. I am actually not really familiar with that one, but that makes sense. It's
Mhm.
basically all the feedback that your body, your unconscious and your subconscious layers are giving you consciously.
Right.
I gotta poop. I gotta eat. I'm too hot. I'm too cold. I'm too tired.
Yeah, it's just, yeah, just the internal stuff that sometimes is really difficult to communicate, especially
Hmm.
child. Like, I don't know what
Especially when you're a baby. All we can do is cry when we don't know
I'm,
or
um,
laugh, you know.
or laugh. So six, the clairs are like seven, which is the inner audio visual direct cognition. And but six prior to that is manifestation. Is that right?
Yeah. Let's go back to discuss like what is a sense organ though, because I
Yeah.
think this is important without jumping ahead too much, because we really have plenty of time, and I think this is one heck of a paragraph right here. So a sense is a scalar wave apparatus.
What is a scalar wave? What is that?
Let's check. Okay, this is what the dictionary says. It is having an uninterrupted series of steps or standing the way like in physics and math, it means a quantity that does not depend on a system, which really what that means, it's a quality. This is a qualitative understanding. It is not a quantitative understanding. Like the light spectrum is a quantitative measurement, and our eyes are a sense organ that takes that quantitative measurement and turns it into a nerve impulse that our brain holographically processes and projects an idea of what that looks like. But all of our senses actually project as much information as they do absorb. We're basically holographically recreating the reality that we experience in any given moment. Nikola Tesla referred, I think he was probably one of the first people. Walter Russell also talked about scalar wave too. But in this context, in a Keylontic context, a scalar wave is a multidimensional standing wave pattern. It is a fixed point of energy that emanates out through the universe. So much like a Partakai unit or a Partakai grid, as consciousness moves through that grid and that material, the substrate that matter is based on. Hey, what's up, man? I'm recording with my sister right now. Yeah, this is my roommate Tracy here. Hello. But a scalar wave itself is a standing wave point that is independent to itself. And the appearance of a scalar wave movement is generated as sequences or that activate, much like a flash line rhythm in a Partakai grid. And the appearance and the illusion of movement, like in a marquee sign on a above a door at a shop that says "We are open." It looks like the words are moving, but it's really a flash line rhythm that gives the appearance of movement. The scalar waves that present what we experience as movement is everything is a scalar wave. Standing points of consciousness that flash on and off in fission and fusion, which don't move but stay in one place. That's what a scalar wave is. Okay, we're almost halfway through one sentence. And apparatus,
Mhm.
apparatus again it's a thing, right? It's a manifest thing. So a sense is much like the here at the end of the lotus petal and this is just really like a beautiful artistic reconstruction geometrically of what this can look like. If we have sense one, dimension one, chakra one, then the sense apparatus itself is just a thing to interact with that level of dimensionality or externalized consciousness that all comes from source.
Yeah. Apparatus is equipment for a specific use.
There we go.
Thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Wasn't there like when we were a kid, the Klutz Company? And they were always talking about like by the KLUTZ Klutz, and it was like learning toys for kids, and it was always like, here's your apparatus today, and it'd be like, here's some blocks, like something like Lego or whatever, or here's how to build this thing, or here's how to learn how movement happens, or what a lever is, or something like that. It's all apparatus, and they would use that word all the time, and I probably took me 4 decades of reference experience to be like, oh, that's what they were talking about. So the scalar wave apparatus and their seemingly manifest parts, right? Because sometimes things seem to manifest. We don't know if we imagine them, but the manifest portions of them that allow the personal morphogenetic field, which again is the same thing as the DNA template, it's what holds everything together. It's your spirit body, the morphogenetic field. In fact, I think this is a really good understanding of what source or God is the morphogenetic field that every field exists within. It's the form holding template. And actually, even just etymologically, morpho is shape, genetic is information. So this is the information that holds the shape together. That's what a morphogenetic field is. And it allows, so the sense allows the personal experience. So whatever holds our, not just this tissue capsule, these bodies we have, but all of them and all the other densities, which is 12 times 12 times 12 times 12, 1,728. That's how many manifestation experiences each one of us have in time vectors and densities that are kind of beyond our imagination. And
Yeah.
really, if all this was,
I think lots of people are stuck in that we end at our skin, and that's it.
yeah, well,
Which is the distortion and you know,
yeah.
the remembrance that has been lost.
And it is a purposeful projected imprint that that is true, that your boundary of your body ends where your skin cells are, which if you zoom in close enough, it's pretty hard to tell. Also, I can't remember what scientist was talking about this. Someone can look it up. I don't really care, but it's really how many cells in your body can you identify as human? It's something between 10 and 20%. It's not a lot because we are a semblance of mostly bacteria working together. And what's really interesting too is that the morphogenetic field of Earth, the planet, also has all these different bodies on multi different layers and densities and harmonic universes. And when a being chooses to come and have an experience on a planet, the planet provides everything on that planet for that being to form a tissue capsule out of. And that is why every element on Earth exists within your physical body. Kind of interesting, right?
Thank
Also,
you, planet.
huh?
Thank you, planet.
Thank you, planet. Thank you, Earth. Yeah. That's also another thing I've been playing with too, is a consideration that, okay, if everything really is an expression of source and alive, that means that Earth is also a being that expresses divine love in a way we can tap into and try to understand. It is profound. That's why being out in nature and just I'm watching a bunch of crows migrate back home tonight. It's just beautiful to look outside and be outside in nature, and to realize that the gifts that we have, there's absolutely abundance of experience to just be in joy with that which is around us, and we have everything we need, and all this extraction, intruder, broken technology. This is like break and dig into everything and destroy and frack it to pieces and suck all the force out of it and burn it. And it's like, guys, what are we doing here? But still, again, back to the caveat where we started, was that if this experience that we're going through, where we've forgotten all of this stuff, if that was not allowed in the provision of the design of this universe or this time matrix that we're experiencing right now, who are we to judge if anyone wants to pick the fall path? Because ultimately everything will return to source. In Anuhazi, there's really beautiful terms in a song. The prayer of the Deyati is Tava into Aya, everything comes from source. Tava atu Aya, everything returns to source. Tava akevoya uetireva, which means everything exists within source now and at all times. And there are two options to go back. You can go back to where we came from and by full conscious memory of the experience, or you can pick a fall path and become space dust, and you will go back with no memory of it. But that provision is there for anyone that wants to choose. What I'm more interested in personally is I would like to return with full conscious memory of this experience, because it has been it's been an interesting journey. And it's also interesting right now that we not only have the ability, because of all the fail-safe mechanisms and what has happened, in that everyone around the world, not just on Earth, but like cosmically, there is this wake-up call happening, and it's manifesting uniquely, individually for everyone, and it's all okay. There's no judgment in this. Anyway,
Mm.
let's get back to trying to process this first sentence of what a sense is.
Yeah, the first sentence, and also the unified field, would that also be a definition for source, like
Mm-hmm.
returning to source, coming from source? It's a unified field.
Pretty much.
The
Yep.
living energy substance, wait, go
Here,
back.
let me click back on that. The unified field.
Is the living energy substance composed by geometrical fabrics or grids of electrotonal electromagnetic energy called Partikite grids. And that serves as the template of the light spectra and the sound tones upon which particle or particum and antiparticle, partica, structures are formed, and through which all things in the cosmos are energetically connected.
Mm-hmm.
And the morphogenetic field, that's kind of our individual anatomy beyond
Mm-hmm.
our flesh capsule. And then the unified field is everything connected with each individual morphogenetic field.
Yeah, I know some of these terms are kind of synonymous, and the
Yeah.
distinction between them is more, it's a toma, it's like a judgment term to like bring distinction to it, because when we talk about source, for example, or God, or it's silly to me that people want to engender and say he or she or what, because we're literally talking about something that is beyond conceptualization. It is the source of why the manifest universe exists. There is no way to conceptualize it. To even attempt to do so is silly. As long as we know that, we can just say source or God or
Mhm.
the unified field,
It's silly, but
you
it's
know?
also not, because it's how people can understand it based on what they are, what they know to be, this human. Is it
Yeah,
a is it a he? Like sometimes we need that to be able to just like understand something, but
yeah.
it is
It's
quite.
it's really all that is not. Like all that is the manifest realm. You
Mhm.
know, actually, you know what? I found some really, I don't even think I know if this would be in the dictionary here. What is spirit? Nah. Yeah, I'll go back to this. I'll just read you. I wrote this on the cover of my notebook here. Is that so the term spiritual, I think we covered this in Law of One or maybe the 12 attitudes and responsibilities, but what is the definition? What is the chelonically scientifically precise definition of the word spiritual? It means non-manifest. It's not here yet. What that also means is, sorry, these contacts are really, really challenging for me.
Also be like what would be considered ephemeral.
Yeah.
It's out there. It's kind of based on how we can understand it, is it's not something that we can see or hold or experience with our first five senses, but does not mean it's not there because we have 6 through 12 more senses.
Hmm. Yeah. Here I'm a little late here. Non-manifest means therefore possible to experience through creative intent and action.
Hmm.
And the contrast to that is what is manifest or what is external reality. It means therefore being experienced from premeditated intent and action taken. So that's the distinction between what is internal, the internal experience, and the external reality that we project is the difference between spiritual and reality. So us as imbued with the design of the creator will have the ability to just create or grab onto a thought, charge it with emotional energy, put creative intent and action behind it, and make it manifest. And that which we experience right now is stuff that's already happened to, you know?
Yeah,
the
I remember we were talking just last week or something, and you were talking about these two concepts. You're like, the reason things don't manifest as quickly and we don't have a thought and then it becomes a thing right before our eyes. Oh no, this was your experience with, was it a dream that you had or something?
Mhm.
It's because we're within this density and things just take a bit longer because it's so thick and heavy here that, and if every single thought we had became an instant reality, that would be
Yeah,
pretty.
wow.
I guess we have a
Especially in
wrap.
those moments when moments of frustration where like curse this, curse that. Wow, if that manifested immediately, it would be a difficult world. But we're also experiencing some of the fail safes and the safeguards of why manifestation doesn't happen immediately from a thought is to keep us safe because we're here to learn how to heal those distortions, those pukas, those voids, those dark spots in our like the shine of the radial body of this, the light that you are, the scalar wave that you are, that and truly like I was presented with a challenge um like this. If if we're all a scalar wave, like literally a star, right? Just shining brightly. The little dark spots in it, those little places, those are the learning patterns. Those are the incoherent, disorganized energy, whereas divine right order is the coherent, organized energy. And our process of learning, the karma is those dark spots, the lessons that we chose to take on. And if really human beings in our design is that we are the medicine to help fix this experience that is happening in the cosmos, that we're down here looking up and being like, what? Really? If the lessons for me like might be, let's just pick one of them. How sad can this be? I've asked that question myself a lot. I don't want to ask that question anymore because there are so many wonderful, beautiful things out there. And I notice a lot of people around me, the question that they often want to ask is, how messed up is this whole situation? And it seems insurmountable to try to address even one question that doesn't be like, well, I guess I'll plant a tree today, or maybe I'll sing a song or something. And it's not a hopeless situation because we actually have opportunities learning stuff like this, which I believe is the least mutated, distorted, and not controlled dogma-ish level of spiritual knowledge that exists. And you know what? There's nothing special about anyone that wants to be a student of this knowledge or whatever paradigm they want to follow, because all of this knowledge is in our templates. It's just been aggressively influenced so that we have forgotten it. But we all know this stuff and we all know what's true. And I love that our sister Effie, she gave me an excellent barometer on what is true. Because a lot of even epistemological debates about philosophy and stuff is like, what is truth? Well, I know what is true. If something is true, it will help me to learn to love myself and everything around me more. And love also is understanding, same thing. So if something rings true to me, it means it resonates and it helps me understand who I am, where my place is, and my ability to relate to others more. If it's not true, it will lead me to be more isolated and judgy.
Yeah, so truth and love and understanding could also be a cognizant sensation where
Hmm.
just know. And if
Yeah,
you love or understand someone or something else, then
yeah,
just fucking know
yeah.
it.
Like back to our questions for discernment talk, another thing provided by guardians, which I believe that this statement right here is that this rings as true to me, is guardians will encourage you to ask these questions in relation to their teachings and when presented with the teachings, ideas, and opinions of others. Why would anyone not presenting the truth to you, not asking any of us to consider these ideas? And right down here at the end, if I believe this thing, will it assist me in becoming a more awakened, aware, loving, kind, responsible, strong, spiritually alive, intelligent, wise, compassionate, whole, and effective human being? Yep,
Right.
that's true.
Totally true. And
Yeah.
that's a high quality question to ask.
Mm-hmm.
That is high
Yep.
quality. And most of the things that we are bombarded with, whether it's online or I mean, belief is medicine or poison. It could be one or the other. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but it's super powerful. And it's like, what do we choose to believe? And is this going to help me become, what was it, a better, more whole
A
human being?
better whole and kind, awaken and live. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm gonna post my rap for the questions for discernment too. I've been practicing it lately.
Right.
But belief, I was just checking if there is There's not an entry in this old dictionary. This is captured in a slice of time from like 2009 that I have this site offline for.
It's just the placebo effect. Like if you think this thing is going to cure you and it does, it wasn't the
Yeah,
thing, it was your belief that it's going to work. So it's just like,
yeah,
that's just a small example of the intention and energy behind a thought that's thought over and over becomes a belief and then it becomes manifest. It's awesome. I think we really underplay what belief
yeah.
is.
I think that that rings true for me. What you just said, true, is that actually, you know, Ibrahim Karim, who taught me how to use a pendulum, which is, you know, something you're familiar with too, is his perspective on what is the difference of a thought and a belief is that thoughts, they're, I think he even used the term dime a dozen, which is a strange use of a term for an Egyptian man. But he said thoughts are trillions of times per second. You can have a thought come through your head, and they might not be yours. In fact, most of them are not. In fact, most of what all of the information, especially in the form of electromagnetic pollution as it is now, since the invention of the radio, it's like that's kind of new, but also there's technologies that are not new where thoughts are like, you know, pushed right into our consciousness all the time. That's what modern day advertising is. But yeah, anytime you, that's actually like marketing is interesting in the economic experience we have in America and capitalism, and it's global, it's not just America, is that everything is bought and paid for by people who want you to buy their crap, and they'll sell you their poison, and they pay other people that are producing content. Even I'm going to post this on YouTube, right? I pay YouTube to not feed me commercials. It costs like $12 a month, but if you don't do that to watch this video, for
Gonna
example, you're
permeate
probably
your
gonna,
subconscious. What's that?
huh? Say again.
Oh, I was gonna say if you don't want to pay them, then they're gonna permeate your subconscious and the subconscious of everyone who clicks on it. This
Yep.
sort of advertisement. And I feel like such as in sleep and in meditation, we're off gassing, like our soul and consciousness is off gassing those those that shit, that
Mm,
unnecessary stuff so we can make space for those
mm-hmm.
more Christic messages to arrive.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Or even just the silence and solitude to turn
silent.
off all the screens and
Yeah.
be outside and let thoughts come through that. Yeah, anyway, Ibrahim Karim's idea about the difference between a thought and a belief is I grabbed this thought and I charged it with energy in motion, my emotion, and I made it like believey. I took this thought, I'm like, now it's part of my paradigm. That's the difference between a belief and a thought. That's it, you know?
Hmm.
But depending on the amount of energy put into that thought,
And what
this,
is the thought also?
well, we can grab one, and depending on the experience and the emotion that the thought had, let's say a trauma occurred and I decided, I don't know, I don't deserve to experience good things or something. You know, like I've experienced trauma in my life that I just decided, I spent most of my life wishing that I was someone else, or I looked different, or I had more stuff or whatever. You know, I was like, oh, this is what my face looked like. I used to look in the mirror most of my life and be like, ugh. Now I'm like, what's up, dude? Hey, that's what you look like. It's awesome. But if the trauma is deep enough and the belief becomes unconscious, not only subconscious but unconscious, if it goes deeply enough, consciously it's very difficult. And that's the difference between an attitude, a responsibility, and a virtue, is that the attitude is unconscious, right? the subconscious layer, which is more chakra 2, is still in our body, but that's the responsibility that corresponds to the attitude. And then the virtue is the conscious expression of the healed identity point of that sensory apparatus. So,
Apparatus is just like a device, a tool specific for a certain, but could it also be seen as like an organ?
yeah,
Like
absolutely.
if in my
Yeah.
human body the liver
Mhm.
and kidneys filter and the heart beats, like each one of those lotuses on the first picture that you showed, they each have a specific
Geez.
job, or they act as a specific different energetic organ.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, that picture.
Yeah, let me move this around here. There's another pretty cool thing here from, oh goodness, where did I put all this stuff? Oh, my computer's a mess. Where's the virtue codes? I think I gotta go on a Dropbox to find it. But anyway, we can talk about the virtue codes later, because I've been working with my friend Erin and her study group on the virtue codes are images that represent, standing points of consciousness. They're beings to interact with that will heal the relationship of the wounding trauma that affects any one of these externalized expressions of our lotus petals. If there's any form of damage in this that doesn't express itself properly from self to other, or our relationship from inside to outside, there are ways to heal this with precision. And that's another cool thing that we can probably do another time. But since we are really working on the senses, and
Those senses. We haven't even talked about all the senses. We're just
no, and
finding what
I,
the sense is.
yeah, let's just cover a little bit of this, because all of this is, I think it might just seem like word salad to some people, but there's a couple important things here. Is that the experiential capacities of even the 5 known human senses have a much broader range than that were presently assumed. So, for example, clairvoyance is people who have the ability to see things with their eyes that is not in this three-dimensional band of reality. There's also people that, I can't remember what the scent for smelling is, but every one of our 5 senses has a layer of what is considered voyance or cognition that comes from outside of what that sense is typically thought to be able to do. So we have visual, sight, sense. So the first 5 here, and these are all in Narahova body, which is density 1 tissue capsule. And the funny thing is, the sixth sense, people haven't talked about the sixth sense, is like, oh, it's about knowing something different. Well, actually, the sixth sense is in all of our bodies, and it is the manifestation template. That is the sense that gives us bodies in the first place. So it's not really, yeah, it's very abstract to think about, but it's also, how do we even enter this universe? How do we even enter the time matrix? It's chakra 8, which is not even in the physical body. It's somewhere around the thyroid gland in between our collarbones. It's a gold color, but 8 is directly between 1 and 15. There's 15 dimensions. That's the entry point of consciousness
It's
into.
relation of consciousness. Wait,
Mhm.
back to that.
Wait, back to here.
The circulation of consciousness and frequency accretion.
Accretion is absorbing frequency. Yeah. I think that exists in astrophysics. Like, the accretion disk is when, like, a star or a galaxy it's pulling in all the information. or like a black hole, which, by the way, apparently black holes are completely inorganic and not supposed to be there. They're representative of what a fall looks like because it's a hole in the center and it's just circulating the mass and force, life force energy by beings and structures in another matrix that do not have the ability to remember that they're connected to source and where they get their energy from. So,
Mm.
yeah, that is talk about triggering astrophysics nerds there. They'll be like, what? They're not organic? And like, I don't know. According to this stuff, it's up to your consideration. But what if, also what if the template of a magnetic field and how we think of it is like this toroidal field? What if that is inorganic? What if really the organic structure of each layer of your auric field and the layer of bodies should be counter-rotating spheres? But if it's collapsing black hole in the center, then it looks like a toroid sphere. And
Ah, there's such great weight to a torus shape in sacred geometry, and that's actually distorted, like this quantum
yeah,
science.
yeah.
Indicating.
And all of a lot of up to and including there's a lot of reverse engineered ET technology and stuff from crashed UFOs, allegedly. But all of these mechanics in the way that the people that are still alive to talk about them, they're all using toroidal geometries to describe this stuff.
Mm.
Anyone who talks about tries to create something and present it to other people that doesn't use those mechanics, which is Death Star Merkaba mechanics, is not coherent Merkaba mechanics or Christ spiral Merkaba mechanics. You try to produce technology with that, guess what? I've got a list of names of thousands of people who are no longer alive right now who have tried to do that. And anyone that is presenting to you that they have the ideas and all the interior government black ops stuff and blah 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 blah, let's not besmirch any names here because all we're talking about is fun things to consider. These are ideas to consider. So at your own willingness, just think
And
about it.
yeah.
Here, as a contrast right here, this is what a Cathara grid looks like. And I think it's very important. It's very important for me to understand too. I print out little artsy thingy on my phone of what a Cathara grid looks like. I think it's beautiful and it is self-evident to me the coherence of this structure. This is precisely a coherent square in the center, and the relationship of this to this is exactly half of these dimensions right here. Well, that makes sense because it can nest together like this. And if the little experience we're having right here is one little eka, and this is the parallel veka here, and then these structure together to form what we can think of as an ekasha, like the Akashic records, that's what the template of our universe looks like. And compare this is what has survived in like a lot of Judaism, Knights Templar and sacred geometry schools. This is what the Fibonacci spiral is drawn upon too. Look at it. It's a Cathara grid that is flipped upside down. It is a literally reversed structure that is missing node 8 and node 12.
What is the significance of node 8 and 12?
Node 8, chakra 8, is how we got here, how our consciousness came to be here from
Oh,
source.
half of the 15.
Yeah. And 12 is the memory of how to get back.
Ooh.
So a fallen angelic being, which is like where the influence of all this stuff came from, is they literally cut off their ability to remember ever again in their own template where they came from and how to go home.
Forever.
And it's
Like they can't ever remember until they go back to source and like forget their
it'll be space dust. Technically, if you get the opportunity to be in a human body, because we have a template that in a physical body we can actually tap into all 12. It takes some rigorous discipline if the template from the soul matrix that being came from. That's actually why a lot of more control dogma religions and stuff, people like Sai Baba and stuff, it seems like really rigorous. Like you're never allowed to put certain things in your body. Like if you ever have, pork or alcohol or this or that, you're done. Like you have to be really, really dogmatic. Top down control dogmas are there for those that, already think that they're in charge of everything, and they're like, the humility is a part of the experience of that. But also, if you look at this stuff, and not to knock, the Kabbalah, because a lot of this information in each node too, the original, 12 race lines of humanity, each one of us, each tribe had each node of the Kathara grid as sacred knowledge in their template, and our job was to integrate it all together. But if you remove several of them and you flip it upside down, yeah, you look at Toth and all that stuff that survived in Knights Templar and Knights Malta, and what the Freemasons think they have, what every single written text, like the Bible and the Quran and all that stuff, yes, there is sacred knowledge in there, but a lot of it's been distorted. And it looks like it's really cool. It takes a lifetime to study this stuff, but if you don't see that there's a contrast to it, and that the reflection of this is like, do you want to look at the one on the right here or the one on the left? Like, to me, this is self-apparent. This is self-evident to me that, like, okay, there's something to this. And you can't nest something together like this and explain it in a way that's not self-evident if it's broken and mutated and distorted. It can sure look like that, though, if we don't know the difference, if there's no contrast presented. And again, this information hasn't really existed on this planet for, I mean, I found it in 2007, which was less than a decade since it was even available through what we understand is what Iesha, the main translator of this stuff, has been providing since about 1998. So yeah, it's a big red pill to swallow, you know. Also, far be it from me to try and pretend that I know what things should look like if it's real. What do
True.
I know?
And this is just about possibly being open to or entertaining an idea that maybe you've never heard before. Maybe you've never
Yeah.
seen before. Like, what is it? What is to this?
Mm-hmm.
And you use your own power of discernment, ask high quality questions,
Mm-hmm.
and then if it doesn't resonate, then move on.
Mm-hmm.
um,
I
but
think this next one's 7. So
uh-huh.
this is one that is I'm very familiar with, and most of my life I have not known how to even describe this other than just kind of be in shock whenever I hear anyone trying to express otherwise, is that direct cognition, inner audiovisual direct cognition, is a sense of knowing. It is a sense of knowledge. And we have the support of what we can think of as our higher selves, higher self, soul family. Like, we're so absolutely surrounded by love and guidance and guardian energy at all times. And
Mhm.
everyone has access to that.
And that's
It's
the truth with all of these senses. This is accessible to all of us. Should we want to activate? Should we want to
should
bring
we choose.
should we choose? Yeah. So, and even just those moments when you sense somebody looking at you,
Mhm.
or you think about somebody and they call you, like those,
Mm,
they're not just coincidences. Or when
no.
you have a dream about something and then it happens, like premonitionary dreams, like those are we all have that. It's a similar common experience that a lot of us are like, well, I don't know what that was. Or like we're scared of it. Like, whoa, that couldn't have been true. So you put it on the table or in the closet and don't recognize that someone, something, the uh source, what's the field, the
Unified.
unified
Yeah.
field, something there wants your attention and wants you to listen or want,
Mhm.
whatever it is. But if we actually gave those experiences a little bit of validation and attention, I think things would open up for a lot of people if we just
Yeah.
kind of,
All I know is I can own the pronouns there and say for me, that's true. The
mhm.
less I worry about, oh, if only others this, that, oh man. I've been so lost in worrying about that because really the only thing I care about is I want to know more. I'm curious. And even the point, like you said, the only thing guardians want from you, well, they don't really want anything. It's an open invitation of ideas to consider.
Yeah.
The whole presentation of this paradigm, even, which over the course of the last 2.5 decades, really, it has been presented and structured in ways that it's so vast. This body of knowledge, which I like to describe as the freedom teachings as it was originally presented, and now even when we first recorded that Keylonic Science introduction with Sarah a couple of years ago, I think that was 2022 or something. Even when we were talking about that, wow, that was 3 years ago now. Even when we were talking about it, I didn't even know how to bring this up. I just knew that you like talking about it. You knew I like talking about it. And I was like, what do you think this is? What are we going to talk about? And you said something along the lines of, it was knowledge that is lost. It's from the past and the future, and it's recently returned. I was like, thank you, Smay. That's so good. And I
That's
asked
my
her,
understanding.
that's
Um,
my understanding too. You're amazing at distilling things in more concise way than I am. And when
it's
I asked Sarah,
it's
I was like,
layman.
what do you think this is? And she's like, I don't know, but yeah, I know it's one of your great passions and I want to know more. I was like, it's pretty dope too. I like that description.
Yeah, that
But
was a conversation.
yeah, I
So
still struggle to even bring this up because I don't know how to describe what it is. And the
mhm.
body of knowledge, I may have scratched the surface of maybe 2% of what's even available. It's so vast that it just requires individual time, or realization is always personal. That's a Anuhazi term that I've been working with too, is that no one can have epiphanies for you.
I was just looking at the 6, 7, and 8. So if
Yeah, yeah.
6 manifestation and that encompasses it, all of our bodies, and 7 is inner audio visual direct cognition,
Mhm.
then what what is molecular transmutation?
Okay, so here's a picture that's more reflective of we're talking about what auric layers and field look like, rather than having a black hole in the center where it does the toroidal thing. It's nested series of layers.
There's the nucleus, and it's like an
Yeah.
egg, not a black hole. It's a container.
So the molecular transmutation sense is, yeah, what is that, right? So that's something that's more related to, it's a lost sense, but the ability to shapeshift, and this is like only really exists in myth and legend, right?
Right? Like werewolves and
There you go. Or turning into a butterfly or a crow and like
animorphs. Yeah.
Animorphs, there you go. Yeah. So Yeah, I love thinking about this too, is what if every story we retell to each other that we consider sci-fi or fantasy is actually memories of other people's lifetimes that they just kind of distill and be like, this is fun time, let's play with it.
Yeah,
But
we're gonna do a Halloween recording this year around September, October. We're gonna talk about that, right?
oh yeah, let's do that for
Yeah.
sure. Absolutely. I love it. Yeah. But even if we think about what is modern day mythology to us, we're both big fans of Joseph Campbell, and one of my favorite things that he ever said that we learned together was that the role of the artist is to communicate the transcendent to the elementary.
Mm,
Now you're an artist. You've been so clear with that purpose your whole life, really, to the point where I've been a little bit envious. Is like, how do I art, And then I've produced hundreds and hundreds of pictures and actual art and things that are, I guess you could call them sculptures or whatever, but I've never been comfortable with giving myself that title. I do have conscious memory now that my role is I'm a record keeper, I'm a rememberer, and my gift is that I can remember and I can forgive.
mhm.
That's my job.
That's
I
that,
remember and I forgive, give, because there's a lot to forgive up in
yeah,
the story,
that is. And stuff that accumulates, the karma that we build every day.
Mm-hmm.
You have to constantly be
Mm-hmm.
giving. I was able to come up with a one sentence thing that I attached to my website about what do I do? And I ground ethereal frequencies into form through art, which is exactly taking the complex and translating it into an elementary form that people don't have to read a painting or they don't have to read a sculpture. All they do is they just look at it. And that stuff, well, that's kind of my whole purpose is that stuff translates or transmutes and you don't even have to listen to anything or think about it. You just let it
Yeah,
imprint. Yes.
that's really beautiful. And that reminds me too that something like, you know, looking at a code like this, or
That's all you
looking at a complex diagram like this or this,
need. Hmm.
it doesn't really matter if it's not someone like me who wants to articulate it and adds words and wrap my consciousness around understanding what it is. The activation itself is just looking at the code.
Not if it were that simple, it is that simple.
It is.
Believe it's that simple, then
Mm,
the the efficiency of these activations and evolvement of human consciousness can just accelerate. Uh,
mm-hmm,
if we believe, sometimes it's just that simple. Or even
mm,
just clicking on this link,
right.
something's gonna
Click
happen.
on the link. Hopefully it's not ransomware. Do you trust it? Yeah, but it's kind of an interesting idea, Nergo's sense of eight of molecular transmutation is. But what if all those stories that persist in our modern day mythology too, like Harry Potter, Star Wars, and all these things that really catch on, especially in the minds of children, and if there's merchandising opportunities so they can hold a thing in their hand and be like, this is real. It's it it's memories. But it's told in a way where all the names are changed to protect the guilty, really. And it's always a war story. But I
Mhm.
think Harry Potter has all kinds of shape shifting stuff too. So I don't know. I don't know what that experience looks like. We haven't had it for a long time, but as it gets returned, what does that look like? Does it
Hmm.
mean that there are those among us who can do that? Does that, I mean, if you
About,
look at a lot of modern day UFO and UAP lore, apparently
yeah,
that's the case. What
the
are the
shape.
men in black?
Yeah. But does it have to be in this density? Or what if
No.
we dream, we do shapeshift. I've been
Yes,
different people put into one. I've been, just a floating orb. I've been an animal. I've like
absolutely.
that shape shifting, like is that maybe we're just actively experiencing it, just maybe not in the three.
Hmm. And
Uh,
that goes on to nine, which is something that I've been experiencing for many years of my life and am able to consciously do, especially the best time for me to do it is if I go to bed early and I wake up really early in the morning before I need to wake up and move around and work and all that stuff. If I become conscious in the morning, I don't move my body. And then because I'm rested, I won't fall back asleep. But then projection of consciousness is very easy to do, to go on journeys. And I'm typically in my soul or oversoul body. So that's density 2 or 3. And I go places and I know I look like a little orb. That's what orbs are too, is often projection of consciousness that we can,
and
it's very difficult to see them, but sometimes cameras can capture them as we have technology now that can do that.
so projection of consciousness, if I were to put a term that many people might know, is that astral projection?
Sure. Yeah.
That is that
That can be one. Yeah.
lucid
But
dreaming?
astral plane is also, I think that's dimension 6 or something. So astral is also a layer of a field of consciousness that the earth has, that we have, and other places have. So astral projection is specifically, I think, an indigo like chakra 6 thing. But projection can happen at any level. It just happens to be like in new age terminology, astral projection is a term, and like remote viewing and stuff like that too.
Think remote viewing would be the projection of consciousness as well. No, it's traveling and seeing a remote location from when you're physically somewhere else. You can see it with your mind's eye, right?
Is that not the same thing? I don't
Like
know,
the same. Yeah, you're right.
you know.
I would I would say it's the same.
It might, I believe it might be, this is how I think about it, is that it's this same thing with different terminology studied by people with different paradigms that describe it in a different way. But ultimately, it's the relationship of internal to external in some way
Mm,
and different terminology, but a
yeah.
transmigration sense. And then also the next one, transfiguration sense, is being able to be in this body and in another one somewhere else simultaneously. And that's
Isn't
what bilocation is.
isn't that true that if time is not linear and all of the versions of us and other time vectors, it's all happening simultaneously. So aren't we always doing that all the time by location? Oh, that's 2 locations. Huh.
Well, that would be like 2 full tissue capsule manifestations that you're
Weird.
experiencing simultaneously on purpose. But yes, all of our incarnation, I mean, they're supposed to be separated. It's kind of broken right now in that we've been in this like little hamster wheel where we've forgotten, and that's the whole reincarnation paradigm that
Samsara.
exists in a lot of
Yeah.
Eastern religions too, is that, but we forget every time we come back that it's happened before. And also, there's reasons why we don't experience it simultaneously, especially from the body we're in now. Like our higher layers of identity understand it that way. But the experience of linear time is something to process it. Even the past is just what we just accreted. The future is the frequencies we're about to accrete. And the now is what we're experiencing, right? And there's different probability vectors for what can be the future. And consciously, with our choice making habits, we can pick the probability vector we want to go on. By the way, the whole probability vector thing sure looks a lot like this picture. Like every moment, there's 12 probability vectors of yourself, and your heroic probability. What a cool term, right? Actually, I think we can. I think there's an entry for heroic probability. Yeah, heroic path, heroic probability. The way time is structured and layered out like space, there are probabilities, which means there's different time vectors of the same set of events that can get in varieties of different ways. The fulfillment of you and your Christos self, of fulfilling your heroic potential, which is your divine blueprint or your DNA template from D12 above, is your heroic path. That is the one that you picked to manifest. And without all the distortions all the way down to get here, there's a lot of other opportunities to not pick that path. And we have the free will to not do that at any time. But the heroic probability would be manifesting your divine blueprint and experiencing it and expressing it in the lifetime that you're in right now.
Mm.
Pretty
So
cool, right?
that's utilizing the sixth sense and possibly sprinkled in many of the other higher senses as well.
Mm-hmm.
And speaking of time and probabilities, I have about 7 minutes before.
Okay, I think we're about done here.
Okay.
The 11 and 12, which also correspond to chakra 11 and 12. One of them is the projection of how you got here, and the other one is the magnetic accretion to go back.
Oh, so 11 is the electrical projection
Mm-hmm.
where consciousness enters dimensionalization,
Mm-hmm.
centrifugal sense. Oh,
Yeah, it's the
that's
right,
yeah,
like a
yeah,
centrifuge. Yeah,
yeah, I feel that one. And
and
then
the
12 is
magnetic accretion is the to go back. So that, but this is all memory stuff, and those senses, the projection into reality is also, that's what Christ, where that term Christic and Christos comes from. Hang on. Where's, yeah. So this is where this term comes from. Karayasatahala. Those are the sound tones as we can understand them down here, of the sounds made when your consciousness chooses to come from dimension 12 and express itself. And
project.
Karayasatahala or Christale, that's where the title Christ and Allah come from. The title Christ and the word crystal. Yeah, look at this. The word Christ and crystallization are drawn from the first 7 vibrational encryptions to emerge into audible outer expressions of consciousness, sound cells from phasing of the inner hub of the Adon Bud cluster, or the Bud-Ahs, of the inner monadic first eternal life creation. So the Christ code is the expression of the eternal blueprint in the design of this time matrix that we're experiencing, that is self-perpetuating and self-renewing, and therefore eta or na or eternal. That's where all these ideas come from. And the contrast to most of what we're taught, most of what we experience, is reversed. It is death mechanics, because it does not have the ability to infinitely self-perpetuate and infinitely exchange energy from source, from our template, from source. Like
Vertically.
we have mutated, broken templates, but with our own conscious memory, we can remember this stuff and learn how to do that again and get back home. But yeah,
That's
that's more insight on where the word Christ comes from, what that even means. And yeah, the 12 human senses. I think, what do you think? Did we wrap it up?
yeah. I kind of wanted to talk about where I had a couple of questions. One is, where does telekinesis come in? Where with an idea or with the intention, you can, within this density, not manipulate, but you can I guess it would be a manipulation, or encourage other objects, the I don't know, the force and movement of them. Where would that be in the sensory?
Well, let's just say that without more expression of learning how to, because we all have this ability, obviously, there's some tests you can do. Like if you have like a little, I don't know, like a cup that's made out of glass or something, you can put it over like a piece of paper that's dangling from a string, or like a compass needle that's not magnetized, and try to, using a pendulum is actually very, very similar. It's subconscious muscle responses if you're touching it that makes it work, but you can use your hands and try to spin it.
Mm-hmm.
I need to pull up some stuff of actual scientific experiments that are done, but the measurement of the ability of people to do this is so minute that there are some people that I have been around and met that can influence these things in ways that don't seem to make any sense, but it's still very, very small. There's no like Jedi push pull thing to grab your lightsaber. There, like that is, I don't think that can possibly be expressed in the experience we have right now, but who knows? Maybe tomorrow,
Yeah, maybe
maybe
tomorrow.
a
I
couple
think
years.
it's definitely there, but it perhaps has, I don't know, other
You know,
effects.
that might be 8 or something with the shape shifting portion. So this is something that Aaron was talking about from the KDDL 2 manual, which is 400 pages, and I have no idea what page it might be on, but it was talking about the assemblance of the cells that we had in a physical body as it was in the past. It wasn't provided by Earth. We could just create the body we were in. And part of this sense to be able to do that was also the ability to just make something too. That's a lot of megalithic structures as we think of them. By I know people try to attribute them to a couple thousand years ago people that just threw human slave labor at these amazingly precise things that we can't even do with modern machinery. Is That's what, and the Ankh tool, that little in Egypt, apparently that was a mechanism that when the earth was not spinning on a 23.5 degree axis wobble, and it was spinning like a top because the Merkaba wasn't hurt, the Ankh tool was something where people could hold it if they were trained and be like, I want a block of granite of this size and this precise dimensions, and I want to put it there. And that's how these things were built.
Yeah.
But those tools were removed because they were heavily, heavily abused and broke the whole template of the planet. So
Yeah, there's always going to be the clowns that rule
yeah,
the rest of
sad
us.
clowns, sad clowns, they're a real thing, you know?
And then my ride isn't here yet, so I had one more question. When you're in the liminal space, whether it's, you're dreaming or you're astral traveling, and you experience the first five senses when you're outside the body and you're in the astral field, and you can taste or you can feel hot and cold, or you smell something within the dream or within the meditation, is that just because it's all tied together, or are you, I don't know. I guess the question was
I
why.
don't really know. For me, I think that is just my relationship to the sensory organs I'm familiar with, and that's how my awareness translates the experience.
Okay.
Because without a different model to put it together and understand it more, you know, there's really there's no option. The only way to rebuild a new, because really it's kind of a spiritual conquest not conquest, sorry. It's a spiritual endeavor to build a new model to understand what is, And the
Mm,
only way to make an old model obsolete is to discover or remember one that makes the old models obsolete. Because we have a lot of models that we obsolete every day, year, month these days,
yeah,
especially in like the field of information technology. Like, you kidding me? There's so many things that just are
it's
scrapped
exponential
and thrown
growth.
out the window, but that's all on software, which is easy to change, and when it's about our physical bodies, I guess. But
Well,
yeah, that's a good question.
that makes sense that if my experience right now, if my first five senses are the one that I know best, and that's the model that I can try to interpret, maybe my higher self is like, oh, how am I going to get this message across to her? I'm going to
Hmm.
simulate what cold is. I'm going to simulate the taste that she knows this to be related to try to, I don't know, translate the language over there
Hmm.
where I'm traveling.
Yeah, and a lot of that is depending on your own personal aptitude for whatever the sense may be. So for me, I didn't have a sense of smell for 9 years of my life, and my sense of hearing became my strongest one. I've always been nearsighted, but my ability to hear is very adept. And usually when there's direct cognition things, or I'm not in my body, I'm traveling, it will usually be words and sounds that I'll hear
Mm, mm,
rather than visual imagery or smells. Like, I never get smell and taste, but I will often get touch and hearing, because that's what I'm most adept with using in my physical body.
yeah,
So
it's
higher sensory perception depends on the ones you
your
like the
sense of
most.
sight.
And
Yeah,
yeah.
that you've exercised the most or have maybe the most
Hmm.
action or practice with. That makes sense.
Hmm. You got to go?
Yeah, I gotta go. My ride is here.
Okay. This is great timing. I'm not sure how long we spent, but this has been wonderful, and we're going to do more. So yeah.
Cool. All right.
Okay.
Well, thanks for listening.
And if you have stuck with us the whole time, please post a comment and let's pick a word, add a word to, if they put that in the post, and they'll get, like, I don't know, a treat. How about this? Hour two.
AURT dash capital U.
Hmm.
All
If you
right.
watch this whole thing and you put a hour two in your post, well, they'll get a treat.
A special treat.
R2D2. I just realized that was also like phonetically similar
Right.
there. But yeah. Anyway, I love you.
Okay. Love you.
Talk to you soon.
Bye.